Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. Well, it's the questions that make a fighter and a fight interesting when it comes to Liam Paro, who made weight today for his showdown with Jonathan Navarro. The questions are swirling. Is he as good as we thought in the Subriel Matias fight? How will he bounce back coming off the first loss of his career to Hitchens? All excellent questions. To help me answer them, Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Chris, there's no other way to say it. He had a big upset in Puerto Rico against Subriel Matias. That put him on the map. His next fight, a loss, but the Hitchens fight has aged pretty well, right? Looked good against Kambosos Jr. He lost to a very good fighter, but so many questions about Liam Paro, but the talent level is undeniable. What's your thought on him before we talk about the fight?
Well, and even the Hitchens fight, which is a very close fight.
Yes.
There were parts in that fight, especially early on, where Paro was able to pressure Hitchens, and it seems that Paro can punch. He has some good knockouts. He beat up Montana Love. That was a very good win, which at the time, I believe Montana Love was I think he was undefeated at that time. He was a guy who was a highly touted prospect who was signed by Matchroom, and Paro came in as the opponent, as this guy with the sterling record, and he did him dirty. So Liam Paro moves on. He's had a lot of that in his career, so which made us start to think like, hey, maybe this guy is pretty good. And we get the Subriel Matias fight, which from what I'm thinking, that Matchroom was more looking at that as a Subriel Matias defense.
Showcase.
Right, then they're going to crown a new king. Guess what? They crowned a new king because they did it in Puerto Rico too. So you bring the Australian guy to Puerto Rico. I'm assuming you're not expecting the Puerto Rican guy. I mean, the Australian guy to get the win over the Puerto Rican fighter, but he does. Matias goes off into the wayside. Liam Paro now is a good signing from Matchroom. This guy came out of nowhere and he's beaten some of our highly touted prospects. Now he's a world champion. Cool. We got a Richardson Hitchens, which, I think the
question marks around him as well.
The report was open on him as well. They have a good close fight. Paro kind of gets pushed to the wayside now. Hitchens goes off and has some really good wins. And there's just a lot of question marks swirling around both of these guys, but especially Liam Paro.
Well, that's because Hitchens had also struggled with Lemos, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So going people into that thought he lost that. Hitchens, it was question marks about Hitchens, just like there had been
there
prior
still is
questions
about Hitchens.
But now coming off with a nice, impressive win over Kambosos, and it's the way he beat Kambosos too that makes people impressed with him.
One of the questions was his power, and
you always build up. You always build up a little more, or you take away a block if you look so bad, right? I mean, you brought up Montana Love. I mean, Montana Love, when he first came out, it was like, whoa, this guy's pretty impressive. Yeah. Then you find out he can give it, but he can't take it at all.
Yes.
He
never really had a good performance with Matchroom. It was the Baranchek knockout. That awesome fight where it was like, wow,
but as soon as he had to take it,
as
soon as he had to take anything, he was uncomfortable. Sometimes being able to take, sometimes you talk about championship fighter has to be able to give it and take it. Being able to take it is not just about having a good chin. It's also about having the desire to being willing to go through punishment and discomfort. And with Montana Love, there was also question marks with that. Once that came out of the bag, he became something different because he was offensively very impressive. But
Baranchek was completely shot.
Yeah,
and he had too many wars in his career because Montana Love again got signed by Matchroom. From what I understand, was a big signing. Never looked good.
And he was impressive though. If he was given it, but as soon as he had to take it, the whole all the layers peeled off quickly.
But that's an interesting point. If you missed our show, we talked about the 50 greatest Jaws, because of the anniversary of the movie Jaws, greatest chins of all time. And
I watched that yesterday, by the way. Still holds up.
Oh, wow, Jaws is amazing. Definitely. Watch it if you hadn't in a long time. But, Paulie, we talked about what's the difference between resilience or the ability to come back and chin. They're not the same thing. No. You can get knocked down and get up again, but once they peel, when you see a guy doesn't have heart, it's so hard to get that back.
And it's also not just coming back and chin, resilience, but it's also taking it. Some guys that get stopped, it's not their chin. It's that they don't like to get beat up and they just kind of fold. You know what I'm saying? They wither away. And you look at it, you can tell when somebody's knocked out. They can't walk. They stop like they're stepping in potholes. Not all stoppages are like that.
Yes.
So
most are not.
And sometimes you're beat up, and yes, you have to be stopped. But sometimes there's guys who just don't like to be in that situation, and they just figure out a way out of the fight.
Survival kicks in because you don't want to end. Your body doesn't want to end up.
But you gotta you gotta have some sort of resistance to that if you're gonna be world class, and that's
But that's the decision.
This conversation devolved into a Montana Love conversation for the last couple of minutes. But he was that guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy who was very impressive offensively, very creative, and then as soon as it came back his way, he didn't know how to deal with it at all. Well, Liam Paro, the cat bet coming out of the bag was, yes, he didn't get sent to Puerto Rico to win. Okay, he was decently impressive, but nothing special. Matias was on a surge, on a rise, and the win over Matias, was impressive at the time. Then he loses to Hitchens, who himself had struggled with Lemos, and so you're trying to build up.
And he didn't look bad in the Hitchens fight either.
But now looking back, okay, Hitchens looks impressive against Kambosos. If Paro wins here in impressive fashion, or he just wins in general, you can also look at the Matias loss as impressive or not, depending on what Matias does with Puello in a few weeks, right? Because if Matias beats Puello, who's now been sort of solidified at 140 pounds, now your win over Matias looks better, and your loss to Hitchens already looks better.
Yeah.
And if you get a win in between all those, hey, man, Paro becomes a viable name.
Right back in. That's a good point.
In the 140. But guess who's back in the circle of trust?
Liam Paro.
But, Paul, you say it all the time.
We'll find out against Navarro first. But
We will. But it's an expression you use all the time. I'm starting to use it. Is he in the room? With the win. You know what? Where you're like,
he's in the room.
He's a world champion.
He's been a world champion. He's in the room.
So he's in the room, but solidly in the room?
That's why we're talking about his return, because he's in the room. Had he not been a world champion, I don't think we'd be having this show discussing his return, right? So he's in the room, and you get a win over Navarro, who comes from a, royalty of a boxing family, but he himself has not quite achieved anything.
Good looking record, though.
That is
18-1. Yep.
Good looking record.
Yeah, good looking record. It is a respectable comeback fight.
Yeah.
In a 140-pound division, that's pretty open, pretty, discussable.
Yes, for sure.
Talking point. Paro fits in there.
What I'm curious about is...
Also,
yes.
One more thing.
Please.
Because we're curious about a lot of things.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
One more thing. Who didn't make weight? Keyshawn Davis didn't make weight. There's
he's
135-pounders that are moving to 40. A guy like Liam Paro, who's an ex-world champion, how do you usually move your way into a new weight class? An ex-champion who you might think you can beat, beat
Yeah,
up.
but Liam's still young. Usually you pick an older next champion.
Liam's right in his prime.
Well, we'll see how good Liam wins.
dangerous.
If Liam wins looking too good, then maybe not. But
Right.
if Liam wins, some of these guys might try their hand at him.
Also, let's look at it from a different angle. One of the things we talk about promotionally all the time, this is across combat sports, guys in markets that are just big for the market they're in. Liam Paro, an Australian fighter. It's a great market. You can make big money, and you don't have to be. Being great in America is really hard. If you're the best boxer in America, that's a great thing, but you're also fighting for a lot of attention with a lot of great fighters. Liam Paro is always going to have a big fan base in Australia. Remember Jeff Horn? Okay, I don't think ever a great fighter necessarily for that division in that era, but my God, he put butts in seats in Australia. Is it this idea that, man, it only takes one of these to be that guy in Australia? Kambosos, we talk about failing up. The guy put butts in seats, and that's part of the reason he was in the position he was in. What's your thought on Liam Paro's marketability should he win?
So Liam doesn't have the mouthpiece that Kambosos had. Kambosos really talked himself into a lot of good fights, was really good on Twitter, stayed social all the time. I think he was responding to you the day after his loss to Hitchens, which I couldn't even look at Twitter for 2 weeks after a fight, win or lose, let alone start responding after getting beat up. But with Paro, he's already in the room. He's already a world champion. He's got a bunch of highlight reel knockouts, by the way, too. Like really good ones on good air. Like stopping he stopped Montana Love. Good, actually really good knockout. He knocked out.
At the time looked good, right?
Looked really good. It was first time the guy ever got beaten. He got stopped. He knocked out. His name is I'm forgetting his name. Thurman just knocked him out. The guy that Thurman fought at.
The comeback fight for Thurman in Australia.
Brock Jarvis.
Brock
Jarvis.
Yeah.
So Brock Jarvis.
Let's call him Brock.
Liam Paro.
Brock Jarvis.
Liam Paro iced him in one round.
Wow.
Straight left hand, put him on his back, iced him. It was a really, really nice knockout. So he has a couple highlight reel knockouts. Also another Australian fighter that he KO'd, a popular one at that. Brock Jarvis is very popular in Australia. Liam Paro is a win over him. He's already a world champion. He comes back, looks good here. Yeah,
if he comes back,
he was very marketable.
If Tom comes back and look good here, what do we say? We're going to be saying, I'm just saying, he still got it.
Still got it.
But he comes back and looks good here.
If you're Navarro coming off the first loss of his career as well, it was on a card that we called remote in Ireland. When you look at it, the psychology of your first loss, how much is a coach in your ear talking about, once again, you lost a boxing match to Hitchens, who's an exceptional boxer. Can you take a lot out of that loss? Can you take the blow psychologically easier considering who he lost to? Does it help?
In terms of
Liam Paro, go ahead, man. You lost to a great boxer.
I think so. So you're saying Navarro also coming off a loss?
Also coming off a loss, yeah.
So this is a chance for Navarro. It's the quintessential take one step back, take 2 steps forward.
Exactly.
If he beats Paro coming off the loss,
he's way further along.
He's way further along than he had been, even if he had won that last fight. When it comes to Paro, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Hitchens loss is aging well. Like I said, even the Matias win will age well if Matias happens to beat Puello, which again is an iffy fight. It's a good fight there. You know, it's up to Paro to control what you control. You know, control what you control, and that means look good in your fight. Then all the other pieces kind of, the chips start to stack as they may. Hitchens looking good from now on is a better look for Paro because that's his only loss, and it's in a world title fight. And the Matias win, if Matias beats Puello, Matias also becomes a world champion. You know what you can sort of set up? A rematch with Matias.
Or Hitchens. That rematch is viable. It's a split decision.
Yeah.
You know, if you need a defense, you call him out enough, you get enough clout. But listen, this fight's not an easy fight. Navarro's talented. He can fight. He's fought on our air. I know we're spending a lot of time talking about Liam because he's the guy with the profile, but let's give a little love to Navarro, who, like as you said, champ, he gets a win here. He's
2 steps forward.
He's flying forward, and then he becomes a player at this weight class because we do rate Paro high. But Navarro, who's fought on our air, super tough kid, as you said, comes from a family of great fighters.
East LA,
East LA, got a good hook. He's got a good jab. When he uses the jab, he's a really dangerous guy, but he does tend to fall off it at times, but he is fighting a southpaw here. So he's not going to, that's not going to be the most active, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most active jab. So stylistically, in terms of the way that they match up, it's not a bad fight for Navarro.
What I'm curious about, and he fought on our air, Pro Box TV, 5 years off between 2019 and 2024 when he fought for us. You saw the tools were there, but Paulie, the last time we saw him, not just a loss on Island, but on Pro Box TV, we saw these having trouble making it all gel in a way that he has a complete game. And one of the problems is, you know, here's a little bit of the code behind the scenes. We're talking about your family. This guy was great. This guy was great. This guy was great. Are you great? Yeah. That's a question we're essentially
Navarro have
asking.
A break in between his career, didn't he?
5 years off, 2019 to 2024.
So that's also, you know, inconsistency is the killer of all killers for boxers, right?
It's one thing to be inconsistent in terms of how many fights you have, but he was inconsistent during the fight because he stopped jabbing.
He's inconsistent both ways then. He's inconsistent as far as the schedule, and he's inconsistent as far as the way he fights. So which version of Navarro are we going to get? It could be tricky for Paro, too, because if you get a motivated Navarro who's putting it all together, you know, this is a tougher fight, tougher comeback fight than you really wanted to have if you're coming off a loss.
Yeah, but this idea that can you put it all together, and it's a guy like Liam Paro who might not be the most powerful guy, does have some decent knockouts, but he's a good boxer, good combination, not a lot of weaknesses. The idea that if you don't get your game all together, you're going to pay for it against this guy. And do you think he can put it all together? I don't want to say on the fly because he's putting it together in the gym, but what we've seen in the ring is a guy who, as you said, Chris, from round to round isn't using all of his tools properly. Liam Paro doesn't give you a lot of room to make mistakes. What's your thought?
At his very best, Jonathan Navarro is really in this fight, could win this fight, is a very dangerous guy. But with the inconsistencies, you have a dynamic puncher like Paro. Paro, you know, he's a southpaw. He's got a good left hand that it's tricky. He throws it at times when you don't expect it. He hits guys with shots they don't see. That's why he gets such good knockouts. I don't think he's the biggest puncher, but he can hurt you. You know, and he's got very respectable power even at the world class level. So when you got a guy, when you match inconsistently with someone who's dynamic, that could create a lot of problems for the inconsistent guy.
As you said, Paulie, and give me your feedback on this, you're always cautious of punchers. You're always saying that, like, if you're not sure yourself, don't fight a puncher, fight a boxer. Is this an idea of, you know, as Chris said, Paro can hurt you. Is that the wrong guy to fight if you haven't put your game all together?
I mean, yes and no. It depends. Again,
you don't always have a choice.
You don't always have a choice, especially if you're in Navarro's situation.
Yeah,
right. You've been looking for that opportunity. This is the opportunity. You kind of can't turn it down, right? When I got my title fight with Miguel Cotto, did I want to get that champion of all the world title fights? No,
a legend, Hall of Famer, right?
You know, I mean, that's the one you got, right? Yeah. So it's you get what you get, you know. And in this situation, I think it's for Navarro. It's just about the opportunity against a name guy that can put you in the mix, can put you in the room, like we were talking about before. So, you know, you don't have a say all the time, but if you win, you create a situation. You may create more situations where you have a little bit of a say.
Yeah, well, we're going to see. It's a huge opportunity for Navarro, but Liam Paro, a very tough customer. They've made weight. They fight in Australia, so I'm not going to tell you the times. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Might be like this morning or like tonight. You know, you never know when they
on
fight.
On the East Coast is really early morning. I feel like on the West Coast is really late at night.
Exactly.
Unless you go to sleep early, then it's early morning for you.
Right. Well, bunch of geographical geniuses.
Depends on your sleep schedule.
Well, depending on if it's in 3 days, but it is in Australia. They've made weight. Check it out as it makes news. We'll talk about it here on Boxing Scene Today. Tune in, find out why millions are watching.